Friends, colleagues and listeners, here we are. We've got a little episode now, which we've titled Reunion, which it always is when I've got the two guests that are on show at the moment, which is Wraight and Des Vertannes. So, guys, lovely, welcome. Really great to have you on board again.
Thank you, Chris.
Now, before I jump straight into it, I just got a little message, and if I don't put this across, Salem gives me a bit of a hard time. So, for everybody who's watching or listening, all links for this event are shown where you see the video, the podcast, or any other reference. And the event I'm talking about is the conference in September in Athens. So that's what we're actually talking about, and also making a few references to how it's going to be conducted and what to expect for those that are attending. So, lads, hey, lots been happening. I mean, never have I known the industry to be going up and down like a fiddler's elbow the way it's been going at the moment. And there's going to be a lot more surprises and twists and turns in the route and the road ahead. So let's just start with some of the issues that are prevalent now in everybody's minds and all talking about it. Just to throw a few in, we got service levels. And I'm going to touch on something that happened to me on the last 3 times I came into Terminal 2. Then we got capacity issues. We got training, which is a big issue now moving forward. Everybody's talking about digitization, but what's really happening? And pricing, obviously, which we will only smile at and maybe give a wink at. But so, lads, how do you think things have panned out now over the last few months?
Des, you want to start? Because I don't know what to say anymore.
Well, fundamentally, I think we've never known a period, certainly in our lifetime, quite like it. Let's be fair. We've had disruptions in the past, haven't we? You know, with various global events, and we've had our wonderful industry suffer the consequence for perhaps a period of 6 months, maybe, 5, 6, 7 months, maybe a year, but never for the length of time it's taken following this pandemic. But it's not just the pandemic. It's been, immediately followed by a totally unnecessary war, but a war that's having grave consequences to everybody concerned. So in one breath, I'm rather pleased that having retired, I'm watching, as Ram Menon always used to say, from the gallery seat, things unfold. But this the seismic change that's taking place in our industry is also a fascinating element to watch. And I think one of the things we should do with this conference is to present an opportunity, not just for us to re-engage, but really to come and see what is it that we can catalyze and change and help the industry to aspire to be what it deserves to be, the foremost supply chain of all.
Yeah, and I think you touched on the word there, Des, and one of the points that we spoke about earlier is everybody now needs to be the change, or they're going to watch the change happen around them. And that's the frightening issue. If we don't respond quick enough, other parties are going to step into what we consider to be our business, and we can't, we mustn't, and we shall not allow that to happen. So, Stan?
I mean, let's go a little bit higher in the equation, the geopolitics of things that are going on at the moment. I mean, it's just astounding how the world has changed. The pandemic disrupted the supply chain like we've never seen before. I mean, we no longer talk about shippers and importers. We talk about, by the way, if I use the term BCOs, which is beneficial cargo owners. Somebody sitting in Spain might be controlling cargo from China to the US, for example. And the reason I use that term more and more is because with all the geopolitics that are going on, head offices of these giant conglomerates are now making decisions to change the way they do business. They have to. And they're directing the individual entities, branch offices or whatever, to do what they're told. Forwarders are now flying their own airplanes. They have to. Why? Because the standard industry didn't have what they needed to make those BCOs happy. So it was either do something on your own, even though there was a high cost and a high risk involved, or else they were going to lose their business to competitors. And that's one issue that shocked a lot of people. Before, taking on the risk of an asset was not something a forwarder wanted to do. Now, if you don't do it, you're just in trouble. That's number one. Number two, the entry of the sea freight companies. They, when you talk about a sea freight company that might have 100,000 BCOs directly dealing with them, This is the numbers I've been hearing from these large conglomerates. Then those people, those BCOs are coming back to the shipping companies and say, look, we want a total solution. And so now they're entering the air freight domain as well. Why? Not because it's like FedEx and UPS. The best quote I ever heard from UPS was, an airplane is a truck with wings. It's just a commodity to get things A to B. So they have to have a logistic solution that requires speed. So they invest in airplanes. They don't want to make money on the airplanes. They want to satisfy the customer who pays for it. So the BCO now is becoming predominant in the parlance of our industry for supply chain. Then there's the other thing, obviously, the war in Ukraine, as Des said, totally unnecessary, unwarranted, and horrible for the people there. But just think of what it's done now for aviation. Will we fly over Russia again like we did before? Never, not for another 3 to 5 years, in my opinion. Are we looking at situations where all that capacity was taken out of the marketplace? Is it going to be replaced? It's going to take a while, if it is. Companies, look at poor Finnair. I mean, the route network is destroyed. How are they going to cope? These are all things that have to factor into the way we talk about air cargo going forward. And so that's on the macro level, geopolitics. It's just astounding what changes the supply chain is going to have to go through in the coming years. And like you said, Des and Chris, I totally agree with you. It's either change and get with it, or just be prepared to be swallowed up or eliminated.
Yeah. And just quickly again on the actual conference itself. So it's made up of what was the annual Cargo Handling Logistics Conference, but also now it encompasses pharma, cool chain, ULD Care, and also ASA. So it's a great venue for people to come, network, and also fit in several different elements of conferencing in one trip. And another key point is it's not being done on simultaneous tracks, but you can actually see whichever one you want. So the choice is totally up to the participants. Now, as far as the style of the conference, and I think with the Grand Buddha there sitting at his cargo altar, it's going to be one. And for those who've seen it on BBC, etc., hard talk. And I think with both Stan, Des, myself, and a few of the other speakers, it's not so much now just talking for talk's sake and discussing things that have happened, could happen, should happen. This is a real turning point now. It's almost as if we're getting to the end of a cul-de-sac and we've got to either dig a tunnel or build a bridge. We've got to do something decisive. So Stan, Des, I mean, your thoughts on the the term hard talk? How do you feel that fits in?
Yes.
Well, I personally want everybody to appreciate that, we haven't had the chance to meet face to face now for some time. So first, let's enjoy it. Two, if you're going to take the time and effort and cost of coming there, let's make a difference. Let's try and ensure that as executives, as custodians of this brilliant industry of ours, let's decide and discuss and bring forward initiatives that can absolutely catalyze change. Because I do believe we have an opportunity this year to start to talk about integrating, talk about collaboration in a way we've never, ever exercised before. Because in the past, there have been legal issues that have prevented us from doing so, and I presume those are still there. But there are innovative ways in which I think nowadays you can provide a solution beyond the industry or the modal element that you represent. And I honestly believe that we are going to have to hear from people very, very openly and candidly as to how they can contribute to the change our industry deserves and warrants. So please come along and don't be afraid, and don't be just diplomatic and tactile. We want you to be there to absolutely give us firsthand your thoughts about what needs to change. And if you have to call things out, we'd love to hear you call it out.
Yeah, 100%. Now I'm going to put it across to the quieter one of the three of us. So, Stan, what do you feel about hard talk, my friend?
Well, you know, I'm very shy and reserved, right?
Yeah, very shy.
Yeah, very shy, very reserved, and no opinions, no opinions at all. Now, look, when we talk about hard talk, I like hard talk. Why? Because they ask the questions that are really on people's mind, not what's politically correct. And at the moment, a lot of these conferences are politically correct. This one, I would like to see it, and I think the most of the people we spoke to who will be there want to see it. That it makes it something they can take away, that they learn something. And the only way we're going to put things on the table is if we're quite honest about what the BCOs are telling us. I mean, the people actually control the freight, what they want, and how they want it delivered to them. What we're hearing more and more in all of our work with airlines and with the airports and with the ground handling companies, it's the same thing. What people are looking for is the ability to introduce competitive products. If a freight forwarder is going to fly their own airplane, obviously they're going to put all their high value cargo on their own controlled lift, right? So what does that leave for the scheduled airlines? We're going to challenge people about that very same question. If a forwarder is flying their own airplane, are they a competitor or are they a customer? They've made a decision. They have to explain how they're going to balance the two. If you're an airport, are you a landlord or are you part of a marketing tool for the airlines to make profitable return on investment for their flights? Because if you can't make it upstairs, right, and if it returns to normal, the yields will go way down and it's not profitable. If it doesn't return to normal, the passengers won't be there and you're more reliant than ever on the cargo. Are you going to start treating cargo as a core business, Mr. Airline? That's a question we're going to ask. From the airports also, we're hearing and we're very positive about the fact that they're turning around now and saying to the developers and the GHAs, if you want on our airport, you have to become a marketing tool of the airport. What does that mean? You have to be providing solutions for the airlines. And what are the airlines looking for? They're looking for an asset-light capability on their part, an asset-light capability to offer a virtual integrated product if that's what the customer wants. So if they're going to compete with Amazon or be Amazon, they want solutions that allow them to put a product in the marketplace. Can you do it? Are you willing to do it? Are you still going to treat the cargo on your airport as a landlord? Yes or no? We're going to ask that. And then on the GHA side, same story. I mean, the GHA side is in turmoil at the moment. Private equity companies have got involved. We all know what private equity companies, most of them want. It's basically buy low, sell high, with an exit strategy 20 seconds after you complete the signature of buying the company. If that's the case, right, how can we depend on you? So explain to us why we shouldn't think that you're attacking the marketplace for your own pocketbook, or are you attacking the marketplace for the supply chain needs that we need, and can we count on you long term or when you sell it, for example?
Yeah.
Last but not least comes data, right? We're gonna be putting you talk about data, but what really people have to understand is UN and ICAO are making moves, and so is the US government and the European community because of cybersecurity. And we have to tackle that. And we have the experts coming to this committee that are going to make very clear what's going to be hitting the industry now, and in particular about cybersecurity and why cargo community systems are important and why your own security has to be right up there. So all those topics we're going to be going into in depth, and hopefully people will walk away from this very happy with what they see.
Yep. No, exactly. So there's some key issues that are definitely going to be brought up and need to be discussed. And some of the areas and some of the people that will be discussing it is really important. Now, as far as innovation is concerned, and also new leadership learning, when you look at, and this is just my opinion, so I'd be interested to see what you two think, but this inflationary rebound, or this inflationary fallout, people seem to be accepting it better than I ever thought they would do. It's almost like, well, we've given you the reasons why everything's going up in price. And I'm talking about everything. They're even talking about milk here now. But we've had energy pricing. We've got, all the consumables. We've got everything. It seems to be that people are actually accepting it far better than I ever thought they would. But what they're not accepting is the poor service quality that's coming with it.
Yeah.
Well, I think, Chris, it's a very, very valid point. But the realization that high costs are here to stay. Take, for example, aviation fuel, right? A year or so ago, aviation fuel was costing around about 60, 70, dollars. Now you're talking about $150, right? So you look at this huge cost factor that's gone into our sector right now. Take a ground handling agent and what he's having to pay in terms of his rent, in terms of his electricity, all the costs associated with human capital. Now, fundamentally, everybody that runs a business in the air cargo supply chain is looking to see how they can draw on additional revenues beyond that from which they normally earned that revenue beforehand, to obviously overcome these increased costs. So the chances are that we should be debating today, everybody, if you're a ground handler, are you going to just stick to ground handling, or are you going to extend beyond the borders of your warehouse? If you're an airline that operated airport to airport, are you going to stick to just operating an aircraft airport to airport? Are you going to extend beyond your borders? Now, nobody, if they want to survive, is going to have to stick within their borders. Just how you extend your service portfolio is going to be critical. And that's part of the discussions I think we'll be having. And I can't wait to hear what initiatives people will bring to this conference.
Yeah,
spot on, Des.
Yeah, exactly. And the initiatives are obviously how to change and develop and explore and expand the business, but also what tools to bring in which actually help and combat against this poor service levels. And I'm sorry to focus on the poor service levels, but at the end of the day, that's people issues, and it's training, and it's oversight, and it's on-job training, it's coaching, it's mentoring. That's all gone to the side now, because at this moment in time, everybody, not just in our industry, they need bums on seats. And whether you go to a restaurant now, or you go into a shop, or you're on transport, whatever it is, the service quality is declining. And the sad, mad thing is when people say, it's not us, we don't have enough people, or they can't use the COVID excuse as much as they used to, but it's just, we don't have enough people. We don't have enough people. If ever there was a sign and a time for digitization and improvements that cut out that and then allow people to focus on building their own self-asset value by being, upskilling, cross-skilling, new skilling, multi-skilling, whatever you want to say, that's the culture that we need to now bring back so that people understand where it's going and what you have to do if you want to be part of that future.
Just an interesting aside, a lot of our businesses with airports, as you know, and we're also big fans of the GHA because we really believe the GHA is critical. One thing most people don't realize, and when you talk about an asset-like business, other than airlines who own airplanes and the cost of it, the GHA on the ground, to make a serious service commitment, the assets that the capex that they have to put into that airport are huge. Danada is spending $200 million in Schiphol Airport, and so you're absolutely right. If you're going to make that commitment and you're going to deliver the service level as a consequence of making those investments, the industry has to look upon the ground handling companies differently, for example. And I'll give you another encouraging sign. The airports now are, how can I word it? They're putting out pre-qualification with the developers for GHAs to work on the airport with a list, and included in there is training on that list. So before the developer can get the concession to work on the airport in certain airports, they've got to pre-qualify the GHA that he will deliver those service elements on the airport, or they're not allowed to be a tenant in the developer or the airport's building. That's a refreshing change, and it's become because the market wants it. One thing, other thing we're going to tackle there, because we have a lot to do also on sustainability, which is going to become a victim of everything that's going on at the moment. I've told you, Chris, in the past, it's speed, it's quality, it's transparency, but sustainability is a big issue, right? And compliance, right?
Yeah.
Now we've got a dilemma. We've got Russia and Ukraine, which is putting the price of oil up through the roof, right? It's one of the major suppliers in the world. You've got sustainable aviation fuel that we're all trying to get to, right? Which when you have a situation at the moment where we're into it, and then you have global warming coming up. All of those things at the moment are clashing with each other. Why? Because of exactly what you said, inflation. So some way or the other, the only way to curb inflation, and energy is a big part of it at the moment, people are going to have to make decisions. Airlines are going to have to make decisions. The BCO, in their demands to the forwarders and to the airlines of their compliance, we got to make decisions as well. We're going to tackle that in this conference. So where does your social and future, I mean, we have to move to SAF, but at the same time, if we have inflation going through the roof and the economy collapses, how do we balance that? This is one of the hard talks we're going to be having at the conference.
Yeah, and again, the people, profit, planet, and how it works out and how one influences the other is so crucial. But one thing I just want to say, I think, and again, just my point now, like with everything and what Des covered there about, going beyond your borders or your boundaries and looking at different things. I think now is the time for airports to be initiating a GHA hybrid or a services hybrid model on the airport, because everywhere it does not make sense to be building all these super terminals next to each other and competing. There's an awful lot of shared services that could be combined and come under the oversight of the airport and paid for centrally. So you could have a hybrid model where people just supplied certain elements that everybody didn't have to spend so much money to have one each. Well, I don't think that makes sense.
We call that the cargo machine interface possibility. There's no USP or there's no KPI that differentiates in the massive investment in machinery that you need to do what you said, to reduce costs, because digitization, what most people don't understand is how much it can cut costs down. It is amazing what you can do. You can put more through a warehouse. You can do it more efficiently. The staff can be fewer but better trained and more interested in sticking around if you digitize. People just don't get it. And we're going to be talking about that in depth.
And that affects succession management. It affects career development, and it brings people back into the industry because they're looking at it as a totally different perspective. But the pooling idea, the pooling not just for equipment now, they can be pooling for so much as part of this hybrid model. And I just think it makes a lot more sense.
Well, we'll see what they have to say about it when we get there, because it'll be interesting to see, like on the cargo community system. I keep hearing the GHA saying, yeah, but we have, I said, you got to stop thinking about your USP and start thinking about the community a little bit. So you have your USPs for 80%, but at 20%, you have to share. And that community has to work. And if you're not willing to participate in the community, off the airport. Mr. Airport is now telling you that. And that's what's going to happen. Because that's exactly the counsel we're giving all the airports, and it's going to become more public in the future as well, what is being done.
So just coming over to you, Des, because we're almost out of time. We started at the beginning with the fact that, we have to be part of the change, or we're going to watch the change around us. Now, for that change, and for any change to be sustainable, we have to get into the hearts and the minds of the people. So it's a cultural model that needs to be put into place. And that cultural model has got to return now to that magic word, care. And I don't care what anybody says, the last couple of times I came in, and especially through bloody Terminal 2, over 3 hours I was waiting to clear. And there was people, I've never seen so many paramedics on bikes. There was old people not able to sit down because it was just on the poles and the bands everywhere. They couldn't get across to the toilet. People were getting aggravated. I've never in my life seen so much. And then the digital e-gates, half of them weren't working. And it's unacceptable now. And this is coming up to Easter, which is a nice rehearsal for the summer. But if people don't get that right and care about what the customer or the consumer is actually experiencing, we're going to have huge problems. And it's so demoralizing for the staff.
Well, the thing is, Chris, we in the last 2.5, 3 years, we have lost a lot of resources, skills, and in an effort to try and survive, people have cut things back to the bone. The issue they've got now is they think that digitization is the salvation of all. The issue with digitization is that you need to initiate it in steps, and you have to make sure it damn well works. Yep. Now, the fundamental challenges that everybody has is nobody expects people to begin traveling again. Why wouldn't you expect people to travel again? You've dropped all the restrictions. People are going to travel. So come on, if our supply chain, if we're thinking at the moment that economic downturn is going to put less pressure on the supply chain, forget it. The pressure is going to remain. It's up to us to ensure that everything we put in place caters to our customers.
Yep.
And we've got to get that right. And let's make sure this conference paves the path in which we can see the lights of that happening.
Yep, customer centricity. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely right.
Yep, 100%. So, guys, listen, thanks very much for this little reunion. And for anybody who's listening, I hope there's plenty of people listening. We look forward to seeing you in Athens in September on the 5th, 6th and 7th. And the one thing that you'll be sure to see is the three amigos here with you today. We'll be there in September in Athens, and we look forward to seeing everybody. Thank you all for listening. Stan, Des, as always, absolute pleasure. And, well, we'll keep in touch. We'll keep in touch, yeah.
Indeed.
Let's do that. Okay.